Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Yak Gadgets. For all your fine quality kayak fishing accessories, go to yakgadget.com. Pelican cases, cooler, and lighter. Go to pelican.com. And the 153 Bait Company. For all your hard and soft bait needs, go to the 153angler.com. Now let's join our special guest around the campfire. Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of Feather and Fur. Brad Hurlbus here, and tonight we have on Jonny Bott with the Feather Therapy little show they've got going on. So we'll bring him on, and he can explain everything what Feather Therapy is and how that came to be, and just chasing birds in the upland. It's gonna be a good show. Welcome.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for having me. Love to have a talk with you. My wife would love to join us, but she's feeling a little under the weather, so it'll just be me this time. So
it's always a shame to feel a little. Now, this episode is going to air second week of January, I think it is. So, but it is Christmas time right now, so it's always a shame to be under the weather during the holidays. I mean, not only can holidays be stressful with either travel or people coming and cooking and everything else, but then to feel under the weather at the same time, I feel for her, man. I feel for her.
Yep. So it's just a lot of high dosing on vitamin C and just lots of rest. Hopefully we'll get her back feeling better before Christmas. So, but yep, absolutely.
Got a few days there. I mean, you're cutting it close. It's almost like shopping at this point, right?
Right. Exactly. At least this one, we get to stay home and hopefully not deal with any crazies.
This is true. And where is home? Where are you guys based out of?
Oh, we're based out of Utah. My family's born and raised here in Utah. So
very nice. And then we'll just start it off how I always started off, because I just like to hear about it. How'd you get into hunting? Was it your dad, your grandpa? Was it something you took on like later on in life? Like what started that fire in you now to chase that in the field?
Yeah, it was definitely my dad. My dad, when I was a little boy, he would go hunting all the time. We own a family business and we do headstones, and what he would like to do, because it was a family business, you kind of have your own time. And one of the many joys he used to tell me was he would go hunting after he did some work in a cemetery. So he'd work like the morning of the work day, and then he'd take the afternoon off and go chase some ducks or something. So growing up with that and him being a hunter and having quite a few hunting buddies, we'd go out, and he really got me into it. Ducks, pheasants, stuff like that. So it definitely came from my dad.
Well, that's awesome. So you spent some time, so ducks, pheasants. So, I mean, definitely a bird hunting household then growing up.
Yep. We do a lot of bird hunting, and we do deer as well. That's one of our highlights. One of the things we enjoy doing as well. So, but definitely bird hunting. So.
Sure. So whitetail deer, mule deer. What's Utah got to offer then?
Utah's got mule deer, big old mule deer. Well, there's not many big ones around where we go hunting much anymore, but you can find a few, but mainly mule deer.
All right. And then does Utah have elk as well? Is there elk in Utah?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I haven't ever gotten, me and my dad and our work, we once tried for some cow tags and just had no success. So there hasn't been a big draw to go back and try and chase the ones with the antlers, because they're even harder than trying to find some cows.
Sure. That makes sense. And you gotta, and that's the hardest part about fall, is like every season clashes. Like it's this huge, like you have to dedicate what you want. And me being a big bird hunter, like all of October spent in the Northwoods chasing grouse. I make a slight transition come November to ducks, because you get that cold weather push. And there's a little weekend stint in there for some deer hunting for our opening weekend. But it's so hard. Like if you're a bow hunter, like and a bird hunter, like you have to pick and choose what you want to do. So I completely understand why you're not firing up that elk camp and trying to figure out how to chase those things, because you got so much else going on already.
Yeah, definitely. Like me and my wife, we didn't even go deer this year because we were focusing mainly on trying to grow our channel and also trying to just catch more birds this year instead of worrying about chasing some deer. But so
sure. And who doesn't like watching? Who doesn't like bird hunting? I mean, if you haven't done it yet, that you're missing out because watching those dogs in the field, that's just something special.
It really is, and the joy and the experience of being with people and walking those fields as well is definitely a highlight that me and my wife really enjoy doing. So
So I know you already mentioned pheasant, so I'm assuming you chase a lot of. Is pheasant like the main focus for what you guys are chasing out there, or what? Or is there you have quail out there as well at all? You gonna get any like a little bit of quail?
yeah, definitely. We mainly chase pheasants and ducks. Those are obviously are the big two that I think a lot of people mainly chase. You can throw grouse and chucker and stuff in there as well. But Utah, being in Utah and also being um, where we are located, we're in northern Utah, and so we get a lot of pheasants and chuckers around our area. Um, but mainly, I've always grown up chasing pheasants, and I just have a huge drive for those long tails and the area around us, there just aren't a lot of pheasants, specifically wild pheasants with the big old tails. And so that's over the years, that's kind of what my drive has been to go where no one else is going and finding those big old roosters. So
Sure, cutting off the beating path, and that's what you have to do when you're chasing birds on public land, right? You got to
mhm.
go where other people aren't willing to go. You got to put in that extra miles. You got to get there from different means. I mean, some of the spots I woodcock hunt and I use a kayak or a boat to get to, just because people
Yeah.
aren't getting there, either getting to those spots at all, or they're absolutely not coming in from that direction.
Yeah, no, definitely, and it's really hard where we're at right now as well because there's actually quite a few public land managed by the state. And there actually really aren't any wild birds out there that we where we live. There's actually like one of the biggest bird refuge in the world, and that's actually where I go because public land, if you want to go chase some pen rays, the state releases a ton of birds out on the public land, but there's no they're so over hunted and they have huge predator numbers that
Right.
you just don't go there because, well, at least I don't, because I don't like shooting pen birds unless it's on a farm specifically. But yeah.
Sure. No, I hear you right there because that's Wisconsin. We no longer have wild. There's very, very small pockets in our state that still are actually holding a wild pheasant population, but most of the pheasant hunting here is pen raised birds. And I just choose to go up north and hunt wild grouse and hit that woodcock rate migration hard when it passes through because I'd much rather chase those wild birds. Unless, like you said, agreed. I definitely utilize farms occasionally, like taking out a new hunter because it's such a controlled environment. I love using it for that. If I really want to make sure my dog, like if we're working on something with a dog and I really want to get a ton of birds underneath her to try to make a correction on something a habit that's starting to form, I'll use a farm for that and just buy a bunch of birds because it's such a controlled environment. But I
Yeah.
agree, wild birds, it's just something different when you're chasing truly wild birds.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. And like we love going to the farm every once in a while. My wife got us a trip for my birthday. It's coming up towards the season of pheasant in Utah, and so we took our wire hair and got her trained up too. I mean, it's just you can't beat a good old pen raised when you want to train a dog on to point something steady, but then you go and chase those long tails and you might be still a mile behind it before that long tail busts and says, you know what, I'm done with you already. And you don't even have
Right.
a on him. So
And then so I already thought I knew this, and I was pretty sure I did. Wired hair, of course. I mean, you just German, Jothar.
German,
All
yep,
right,
German wired haired pointing griffon. Yep.
all right. So it is a griff.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right, mine was
Yep.
just
She's a
sitting right here next to me. So, because I also
oh
I
very
also have
yep.
a griff. So,
Yeah. They're great dogs. I love them. I've always grown up with short hairs. We have a wire hair and a short hair. Um, but I've always grown up with short hairs. And when I graduated high school and stuff, I wanted something that I could go out by myself duck hunting, or I could go out by myself pheasant hunting. And the wire hair just has so many versatile aspects of it that it drew me to it. And I don't think I will buy anything besides a short hair or wire hair anymore. So
sure. I mean, I agree. I love the versatility of the wired hair. I did have a person on the last show that aired. He made a very, very good point of owning a flushing dog and a pointing dog for some unique situations. So there's a chance I might own something other than a Griff, maybe some sort of like American Water Spaniel or like Springer Spaniel or something, and run in conjunction together. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure I see not owning a Griff unless there's some really unique circumstances that happen in my life. Like they're just such a great dog. They're so personable, and they're such a pleasure to wash in the field. Actually, I mean, because they hunt closer than some other breeds. So I mean, you really get to watch them work.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I actually listened to that podcast. He does have a really good point. I mean, when you're down to the point where you're throwing sticks under a bush to get some birds to flush, I would rather have something smaller that would climb under that bush as well. So I mean, I don't have a problem with running pointing dogs with flushing dogs. I think if it works and that's what you're into and you've had great experience, then go for it. I think just in Utah where we go hunting and it's just birds and open plains, that pointing
Right.
dog is amazing for us. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And then what's the duck hunt? I mean, I've heard like Salt Lake can be phenomenal for duck hunting. Like I know I feel like it's that little like it's I don't want to call it out there. I know it's been in magazines and it's been talked about because I think I read about it in a DU magazine. So it's out there. But what is the duck hunting like in Utah? Like, is it on like the outskirts of the flyway and you kind of get some trickle through it, or do you actually get a good migration that comes through there?
we get a good migration. We get a really good migration. We're in the Pacific Flyway, and I I don't know. I know a lot of guys that kill ducks every weekend, piles and piles and piles. And I mean, me personally, me and my wife, we go out every once in a while. And I mean, you can almost guarantee coming home with one or two if you've got a good spot and have done your job finding a good spot to sit on. So I would say Utah's a pretty decent place to go duck hunting. I don't think you would find a lot of big guide services in Utah because it's not to that kind of level of ducks, but we definitely get a good migration that there's lots of hunters, there's lots of places to go. So you can definitely you can have success in Utah if you know where to go and you've done a little bit of research, find a good spot. So
And then out there, I mean, are you pintail heavy? You got a lot of pintails because I know like out on like the east, like on the far west coast, like California and Washington and stuff like that, like pintails are really prevalent out there, far more than Wisconsin.
we yeah, I was just gonna say we have some that come through. We don't get a lot. I mean, the
Okay.
limit on pintails in Utah is one. So I
So that's
mean,
the same. That's the same as here then.
yeah. So I mean, we get them to trickle through, but I don't see very many. Well, this year especially, there have been a crazy amount of widgeon. I can't believe how many widgeon have come through this year. So, but mainly
Interesting.
widgeon and mallards, and you get obviously spoonbills and stuff like that. Just your regular stuff.
Sure, sure. No, that makes sense. I wasn't sure where that change starts to go because I lived in Cali for a little bit and I worked out there with one of the Ducks Unlimited chapters on a youth day or two. I think I did two of them. And I was talking with the guys there and they're like, man, I'd love to come back to Wisconsin and shoot mallards. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean you guys don't have? He's like, we got nothing but pintails. I'm like, wait, what? You guys got nothing but pintails?
Yeah,
Like, I'll do a swap. I'll get you guys a bunch of greenheads. You get me a bunch of
exactly.
longtails, man. Like, let's do this.
Heck yeah, no, it's crazy. It is crazy depending on where you are and where you hunt, how different it is, and it's just those different birds choose different ways to go.
Right,
It's
right. So
fun.
I wasn't sure where Utah fell in that mix because you're moving farther west. I wasn't sure where that transitions. And what about? I mean, do you have a lot of geese that come through?
We have a fair amount. It's kind of the same when I was talking about the ducks. It's just there is a fair amount, but especially in northern Utah, if you want to hunt geese on private land, you'll probably kill yourself about the time you try and get out to the spot where they're laying down. And if you try and contact landowners and stuff, most of them are pretty locked up here. So
Got
they're
it.
here. They definitely come in big old flocks, but when it comes down to chasing them and figuring out where they're going, they're quite a task.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense. A little bit different. I mean, here we're so farmland. I mean, we have no mountains. We have no hills. We have like tiny little rolling hills is what we have. But I mean,
Yeah.
we're a ton of corn. By me, we're a ton of cornfields. We're a ton of dairy farms. And yeah, I mean, right now we have thousands of Canada still here because we're really warm. We don't have much for
Oh yeah.
ice, but the ice we had's already all gone already, and we're back to open water. So I mean, we're stacked really full with Canada's actually. Our late season actually just opened today. So I'm hoping to get out maybe tomorrow morning on those and get into a field hunt or two.
Yeah. Well, there you go. And that's really cool. I mean, we have a lot of farmland around here too. It's just I wouldn't say that the mountains here really affect it. It's just when it comes down to private property and landowners, most landowners that own those big old farms and those big old dairies, they've got them signed off to hunters 20 years ago that still hunt it and their kids hunt it, and so it's
Got
just
it. Got it. A
you got
little
to
bit
know
different.
somebody to get on those. So
Sure. Nope. And you run into that here. I'm thankful that we actually have some public land around here that they actually plant corn on and then they cut
yeah,
it. So we actually have some public land that we are able to chase geese on because everything around here has been harvested for about a month at least now. So I mean, it does give us some opportunities on places to set up to field hunt geese.
yeah. And I think that's really cool. And I wish Utah could look into maybe some more of those programs where it makes it a little more suitable and a little more gives other people opportunities. I think they
Right.
could definitely do it, but obviously don't run the state and they do what they kind of want to. So
They have a plan, whether everyone understands the plan or not. So I mean, it's no different. It's the same in Wisconsin, right? I
oh
mean,
yeah,
we've
oh
got
yeah.
we've got. I mean, there's plenty of things I can complain about with our DNR as well. Be like, what are you guys doing? Like that makes no
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
But
yeah, and the hard part is that you just have so many people to cater to, especially being a state and trying to regulate. I mean, we'd all love it, but in the end, is it going to benefit the state? And that's why they're in charge of it. Because if it was just a couple guys in the back room figuring out where we plant stuff, where we hunt stuff, everyone would probably be pissed off at each other.
this is true. This is true. So how old's your Griff?
She's 3, turning 4 in April. So
Very nice. Very nice.
yeah, not very old.
Starting to get into those prime years, like where I mean, that's six. That right around 5 or 6 is every bird dog I've trained from a puppy. I rescued my current one at 6 actually, but the ones I've had from puppies, I mean, that's their golden. I mean, that's when it seems like everything really starts to click, and they still have plenty of energy, and their hips aren't sore yet, and they don't have bad joints, and it's all clicked, and like you really get to experience some amazing hunting.
Oh, absolutely, and that's for me has always been the payoff for working so hard and training so hard and spending so much time with them is that first couple years you go through kind of the puppy stage where you deal with all the crap that they do to you and all the push birds and all the fun that you go with in them, and then it's like wow, all of a sudden it's like you'll point every bird, you won't push them, you'll just it just I completely agree. Those golden years are always great, so we're really looking forward to next year as well because she did amazing this year.
It's great as you watch, like that progression's awesome to watch too, right? Especially because it sounds like you're training her yourself. I mean,
Oh yeah.
that's what it sounds
Yep.
like. So, I mean, as a trainer, and I'm not a great trainer by any means, I've trained both of my dogs, but as it starts to click, I mean, there's some pride there because like this is from me. And no, I've always gotten help. I've either worked with different clubs like HRCs or NAFTA or something along those lines, or people that I know are that are professional dog trainers that I'm friends with that I've worked with on the side, like not necessarily had them train my dogs, but worked with them saying, hey, this is what we're experiencing. How do I get through this? Come out for the day and I'll work with them type of deal. But it's always great when that starts to click and you're like, and the dog just starts to get it. And you're like, now it's good. Like now
Yeah.
the frustration and that like rolls back the frustration, which even makes things go faster. Like when you're not getting frustrated and the dog isn't getting that kind of energy off of you. And then like, it just seems like a snowball effect as it starts to click. Like it really just starts to click.
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree because we just got our a short hair as well, and she's only 9 months, and it's like it's night and day. You look at the difference, and we took them both out this year, and And it's like, okay, we'll watch Willow and hopefully Cora will be off in the field figuring it out. And, we took her out a couple times by herself, but it's like, yeah, we know which dog we're watching for the real point. The short hair will point certain things, or she's got her nose down a mouse hole or something. And it's like, yep, we're watching the 3-year-old wire hair because we know she's just hitting some good stuff. And so it was pretty crazy. And I feel the same way as well. It's nice having what you were saying, having buddies not necessarily train your dogs for you, but give you those tips as well. Because we're part of NAVDA here in Utah, and there's just so many people. You go, hey, I don't know what's going on with my dog, and they're hand over fist trying to help you. Like, yeah, go do this, or hey, come borrow some birds, or something like that. So, a lot of that hard work pays off, and it's nice having those buddies like you were saying as well.
I mean, NAVD is such a great thing for a versatile dog and pointing dogs and your hunting retrieving clubs for your labs and your flushers. And I mean, not only is it a great resource because you have all these different people here training at different levels, and there's almost always a chance whatever you're facing, someone's already seen before and they've already worked through it so they can help you. But even once you get past like just the amazing resource it is, the friendships that come out of those clubs is amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it grows. The friendship's big enough. I mean, we got our short hair from one of the buddies that helped me test Willow in the first place. Like 3 years ago, I was new to the whole dog training scene officially, buying a puppy, starting from a puppy, and building it up, and it created this great friendship. And I mean, we bought her from him, and he's like, we want her tested, so make sure, let us know how we can help you. And I mean, he's got tons of pigeon, and he's like, bring your carrier, come take some pigeons right out of the coop and go hunt. And I mean, how do you beat that, especially with friendships like that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know actually I had another guy on the show a while back, and he hunts a GSP and a Griff, and he loves the combination. So I
Yeah,
really think as that GSP as your short hair, I'm assuming it's a German short hair partner when you're saying short hair.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I know there's other short hairs out there that people call short hairs, but that's pretty much
yeah,
pretty much a German short, right? So I didn't want
yeah,
to assume, but I did. Anyways, and he loves it too because his Griff tends to range closer with the GSP out farther, and they work great in conjunction with each other because if the GSP misses a bird, that his Griff always plays cleanup.
yeah.
But the Griff will find birds. I mean, so they both are finding birds. Occasionally, that GSP's out or working a different area where that Griff is more just a little more methodical, and he loves the combination.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. And I think that's what's the benefit of maybe running two different kinds of dogs, is because you do get benefits of both. Like obviously the German wire hair has those versatility skills that you want. It's going to do both really well, but on a hot day, the short hair will outrun them any day because they just don't have all that weight and all that hair. So I think that's really cool because I mean, why not? If it works, it works, and take the traits of both dogs and benefit from both of them.
Absolutely, and even if like I've ran dogs, I normally run my dogs all summer long. I'm really good at watching for heat management, stuff like that, making sure they get enough water. It's something I train through the summer so that way there, if we have hot days and falls, it's nothing out of the ordinary for us. But it's amazing how like this year at grouse camp, it was really, really hot for us. And even getting the dogs plenty of water, like they just couldn't keep their tongues in their mouth. And if their tongue isn't in their mouth and their mouth's wide open, their tongue's hanging out, they're not using their nose anymore because they can't, because they're panting so hard. I mean, it's just amazing how that heat can affect a wired hair dog and all dogs in general, like on their scenting abilities.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was one thing me and my wife talked about quite a few times while we are out this year, is just when to slow down and when to give the dogs a break, because just when they start running so hard and they're working so hard and that mouth comes out, you seem to miss a lot more birds. So yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy. And I didn't understand that until talking to NAVTA guys on one of the test days. And it was a really hot test day. And they're like, make sure you have your dog watered so much that like it's almost dripping water, not sweat, before you take it out for your test, because you want that dog's mouth closed. And I had no idea that's because the second that mouth's open, they're not using their nose as much anymore, and that's what you're wanting on this, especially a natural ability test. You want your dog using their nose as much as possible.
Right, absolutely, and especially and that goes the same for hunting, right? Hunting hot weather. I mean, you're
Right.
not out. I mean, I love just watching my dog work the woods. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, we're both out there to find birds. Like that is the end of the
Yeah.
day goal. I love watching her work, and we don't need to shoot a bird to have an amazing day, but at the end of the day, I want to find birds. I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of why we're out there. She
Yeah.
wants to find birds. I want her to find birds, and when she's out there panting so hard she can't even use her nose anymore, I mean, it just makes it tough for everyone.
It does, and especially if they're panting, I mean, under your vest and everything, your coat, you're freaking sweating as well, so it's just miserable for everyone. You walk home without a bird. It does break your heart a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's even worse though when she does her job and I don't do mine because then I mean, you got a Griff, you know that side eye. They're really good at giving you some amazing side eye where they're like, really,
Oh, isn't it?
really.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Because I've always grown up with short German short hairs my entire life. That's what my dad had. And they are a lot more, and I know every dog's different, but they seemed a little more passive aggressive, and especially training a Griff and everything. They have such an attitude. It's so amazing. And it's kind of funny because my mom has always told me how much of an attitude my dog matches me because we both are stubborn and hard to get past. But yeah, no, it's amazing.
Yeah, Griffs are definitely unique in training. I love them. They're definitely a different type of breed to train because they're so smart. And I feel like they come off stubborn a lot, but I don't think they really are because I truly think most of them train more like a softer dog, but they're so smart that it comes off as stubborn.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. On the last podcast you did, you guys talked about how like forgiving labs are.
Oh yeah.
And I was thinking about Willow and when I was training her, and like sometimes, you have the e-collar on them and you give them a little zap when they're not listening or they're not coming back. And sometimes even if you do zap them, they kind of like hold that grudge for the rest of the training session until you put them in the truck, and then they're like, "Okay, fine, I'll be okay now, but I really hated you there for a minute."
Oh yeah, it's definitely a unique breed to train. I've talked to other guys about it too that own and we're all pretty much on the same page that it's a very rewarding challenge, but you have to be ready as a trainer for that challenge.
Oh, definitely. And that's what a lot of guys before I got a puppy was, warning me and preparing me, saying, "You've dealt with short hairs, but just get ready to be a little bit softer on your dog because there's a good chance they're going to have a little more attitude." So, yeah.
And it's weird. I mean, that's like an oxymoron, right? Because you're saying you have to be softer on a dog with more attitude, but that's because the
Yeah.
Griff does like to hold a grudge, and they really are. You really, I mean, it's really a truly consistency game with them, is what it
Mhm.
really is. I mean, it's just a
Oh, yeah.
really soft hand, but an extremely consistent soft hand.
Oh,
it's unique.
yeah. No, I completely agree. Some of the best days were when we didn't have obviously training, it has its up and downs every day. Some days are just great because they are, and some days are just crap because,
Oh
maybe
yeah.
you twist your ankle or something that morning. But just it really is consistency, and I think that you could probably attach that to training any dog. Obviously,
Agreed.
consistency, but wire hairs, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but I didn't think of it that way until you just mentioned it. But I can totally see that just consistency and a soft hand. I would agree with you that your dog will do just fine as long as you've got the patience to outwit your dog's attitude.
Right, right. And that comes and like you had mentioned, like with the labs, I don't want to go back down that road, but some dogs are just more forgiving than others. And I there's been plenty of times I've been training with my Griff, and her and I have just had a bad training session, and you always try to end it on good, right? You always try to end it on a high note. But she's at that point, she's just like, no, I'm done. I'm done with you. I want to go home. Like no, no. And I feel like that whole entire night, then, like no matter like what I try to do, it's like she's like, nah, I'm not all about you right now. We'll
Yeah.
start again in the morning.
Yeah. No, exactly. Exactly.
So that does leave for some unique things for you. Like, has training the Griff helped change like how you train your GSP now? Like, are you using some of those different techniques like with your GSP, like those softer techniques now, maybe a little bit less pressure than you would have in the past?
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of fun actually because one, it's a new puppy and we're training it, and two, I got married in June to my wife, and she had never trained a dog before. So I've actually given a lot of the reins to her. So one, that my wife can also pick up a lot of the training aspect of it, and also to teach the puppy. And no, it definitely has. And I think a lot of conversations me and my wife have had about training our GSP have been just being consistent. And it's amazing because of my work schedule, working my Griff, it was like always super late at night and stuff. And my wife is so amazing at training our GSP because she comes home a little bit earlier than I do. And like one of the first things she loves and enjoys going and doing is heading out the door and just training our Cora is her name, is going out and training Cora for an hour. And she just loves doing it. And then we talk about it, talk about how it went, and then just talk about what we can do different. And so I think consistency definitely is the key. And I think I wouldn't say we're not being too hard-handed on her either, but definitely I think because of learning it through the wire hair, learning the techniques and getting over that, you don't have to have, for me personally, such a hard hand because you can understand the techniques of training better than it was learning it and trying to train a wire hair at the same time.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I've said this before, and I mean, I don't know if I'd recommend a Griff for a first dog for a first time trainer. I mean, they're just not. It's they're an amazing dog, and it could have. And as long if you got enough help, if you work enough with that, you could do it. Like you're going to
Yeah,
succeed, right? As long as
yeah,
you reach out and get a good support network. But I still truly think like a GSP is because they kind of have that happy-go-lucky attitude. At least all the ones I've ever worked with and met and hunt over and help people train, they have this happy-go-lucky attitude where like 30 seconds later they're kind of like, whatever, let's go have fun. They
exactly.
kind of they're like the lab the like labs in GSP or like Pointer and like Flusher, like they have that same kind of like goofy personality, but they have that. It's not even a goofy personality. It's that they really want to please you personality.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, I would agree. And it is kind of funny to watch the difference between the two, because I can see that as well. Like she's just so goofy and she just wants to love you to death. And the wire hair, she loves you to death, but if she's just tired of you, she'll go lay on the bed and leave you alone. And where that GSP, she'll run up and she'll lick you, and she won't go to sleep when everybody else is trying to go to sleep. And when you're training and stuff, she can go for hours as long as you give her a couple times with the ball to have fun. Then she's like, okay, what are we learning next?
Right. And that's fun. I mean, that's always fun. Like if you're prepared for that high energy, it's fun because you can train hard. Like I wouldn't say you can train harder, but you can maybe have longer training sessions and get maybe a little more accomplished in a time.
Yeah, no, I would agree. You definitely don't have to space it out as much, and I feel like obviously most dogs can pick up stuff really well. Obviously, that's why you're training, and why training works so well is because most dogs can pick up stuff. But I think that because they do have that energy and they kind of seem to pick up things a little bit better as well. Maybe you're doing like 2 to 3 reps and both of them are bad, and then the third or fourth rep both go great, and it's like, well, why the heck did we mess up on the first three? Because now it's like almost you have it down perfect. So yeah, and just from training my wire hair, it just wasn't that way. The first two were bad, and so you moved on to something else and came back to it because the third, fourth, fifth were just going to be just as bad.
Right, right. You always have to have that backup plan if you're working on this and it's just not going good that day. you got to go to something else and bring it back to a positive side so it stays fun and it stays rewarding. And that reward is such a huge thing, at least that I found with a griff and a white. I don't want to generalize all wired hairs, but with a
Yeah.
griff, that reward of that training and making sure it's good. And if you're just not on fire, like if you're not hitting on cylinders, if you're not both on the same page for a certain task, I've just found it's much better to move to a different task, like you said, and be a positive, have a positive experience throughout of it, rather than trying to force what you're trying to make happen on that day.
Yeah, no, definitely. I completely agree.
So what kind of habitat are you hunting out by you? We're going to change gears completely because I've never been to, I've been to Utah once. I know nothing about it. I do know, I mean, you have mountains on the one side, right? And then are you plains on the other?
Yep, yep. So we're not in a valley where we are. We're in more of a plain. So you come off the mountain, straight plains. So we do a lot of hunting. Obviously, we have a mountain right there, so you can go chase chuckers whenever you want. You just walk up the mountain, or you can go to the farm side, the plain side, and you walk open fields with ponds. A lot of the stuff we hunt for pheasant is actually a lot of marshy land. Because that just seems to be where they are here. I don't know. I've heard lots of guys, North and South Dakotas and stuff like that. They just have straight dry fields or like cornfields, no water except for the water in the ditch. And here it seems like they love the water and almost walk on it. So we do a little bit of kind of all three. Either you choose the mountain or you go play in the plain that seems to have marsh a lot in it, especially around here.
Interesting. And I've heard of that around here though. I've heard about people like that's one of the areas where we still have wild pheasants. It's in our bigger marshes. So that doesn't necessarily surprise me, but you are right. That is completely different from what the guys are chasing in like the Dakotas or even like Nebraska. I mean, those are all that's a lot more open fields, plain style stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's kind of crazy because when I was growing up, we would go watch just fields, open fields. There's a lot of public land that's just open plains, lots of sagebrush, stuff like that. And that's what I grew up learning. And what I have learned from a buddy and a couple guys from NAVDA is like, everyone knows to go walk a fence instead of an open field because you'll seem to have more success because they like to follow those edges. Well, it seems around here, especially where we go hunting, it's the edge between, it's not just fence edges, it's actually the edge between low grass and high tules that seem to be the edge that pheasants where we go hunting seem to gravitate to. And I had no idea that was a thing, and I probably would have shot a lot more pheasants in my life when I was younger with my dad walking a field if I would have known that was how they worked up where we go hunting. So
I mean, there is something to be said about cover, like transitional spaces of cover, because that even plays into grouse hunting. Like that's a big thing for grouse where you're looking for some older timber with some newer timber, and you really focus on those transition lines. So that doesn't necessarily surprise me that those grouse or not that the pheasant by you gravitate to those transition lines, be it sometimes fence rows, but other times just this transition in cover type that where you find a lot of success.
yeah, definitely. And it is kind of fun when you have a little more people. Me and my wife really like to go out just by ourselves with our two dogs, but a lot of times we'll take family members with us and stuff. And it's really fun because we'll go walk those plains in front of the marsh areas and then do the loop around those edges. And it seems like every time we're pushing them out of those plains right to their favorite spot of those transition spots. And then we're popping them on the way back to the truck because they're all sitting on the tule grass edge. So it definitely where you live and what you do, and you tend to notice these things, and so it's really fun because you can cater your hunts to what you know about the birds in the area. And like we volunteer for Delta waterfowl up here as well, and it's fun going to meetings. And we're the crazy ones that go and chase longtails all year long instead of shooting ducks like all the buddies we go and talk to. And they're like, we just don't go anymore because we don't ever have success. And it's just like, well, guys, it's just because maybe you're just not walking the edges that they're hiding at. I've watched guys walk an open field. Let me restart that. I've pulled up to a field where I've watched guys go and walk it. There's like a group of 20 and they shoot, maybe one or two birds or something like that. And they'll come back to their trucks and then they'll call me crazy as I'm walking out after they already came and walked that field. They're like, we just walked it. I'm like, I know, it's okay. And then I'll go pop two roosters right on the fence post that they walked right by. So I think it's fun to me and especially to my wife when we go and do these things because just based off of the years of doing it, knowing where these birds are and watching guys, and then they come and they're like, how the heck did you know there were two roosters? And it's just like, I don't, but that's just where I found them. They're not sitting in the open field, and technically you guys kind of did all the work for me. You pushed them to where they want to be anyways.
Right, you bumped all the birds, they flew, they went for their preferred cover area, rather they went for their preferred cover for concealment and to hide in because they're not out in the fields feeding. You guys
Yeah.
left and I went and chased them where I knew they would be because you pushed them there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people get frustrated with pheasant hunting because they just don't understand that pheasants aren't like a duck or something. They're not just going to come to you. You actually have to know where these pheasants are going. You need to know what they like to do, or else you're just not going to have the success. Obviously, you can still be successful and stuff like that if you just go walk an open field. Most guys will tell you to learn how to pheasant hunt by walking an open field. But a lot of it comes down to just learning what the birds do.
And that's experience, right? I mean, that's time spent in the field hunting your specific areas and your different types of covers, knowing when the pheasant sees this, like be it weather, be it habitat changes or hunting pressure, this is how they respond. And you can use that for any type of bird. I mean, grouse hunting by me, you put a lot of hunting pressure on them, it completely changes where you're going to be finding them, how you have to hunt them. You give them some really hot or really cold weather in a not a like in October, which is normally a milder month, right? If you give them like a weather extreme, this year was really hot, last year was really cold. Both years completely different where those birds were.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely, and it changes every year too, which it surprises me how much it changes. And it it's interesting. One of the changes doesn't have anything to do with weather around Utah. Obviously, it comes with cover, but like a lot of the spots we go and hunt, it's on this big bird refuge. It's the Bear River Bird Refuge up here, and the the bird refuge has a lot of, I don't know if it's contracts or agreements or whatever, but a lot of cattle graze on the bird refuge because we deal with a lot of fragmite. And so you'll see cows whenever you go hunting these places. And me and my wife, we have quite a few spots that that's our spot. We love, we know every time we're going to go there, we're going to at least see one. And then the next year, it's just not the same because instead of worrying about weather or how cold it was or how the water was, it's just cows. They ate all the cover. And so you just don't go to that
Sure.
spot for a year. So
So
it's
it's
crazy.
habitat. It's habitat at the end of the day. It's habitat
Yeah.
because the cows
Oh,
graze the habitat.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so instead of being on your side of the canal, they're just on the other side that the cows don't eat on. But that's also happens to be the fun side that they don't let you go hunt on. So,
Got it.
yep,
Got it. So then you have a few years until the habitat grows back and those birds start to move back into the other area.
yep, yep. So then you just, the bird refuge is so big that you can hunt every inch of that bird refuge, huntable land that isn't covered in water. It's just so big. So every year it's always a fun game to figure out where the cows are and also where the birds are because every year it seems to migrate north and south because the cows they have it on the north part of the bird refuge, and so you just don't hunt that part because there's no
Sure.
cover, so you go hunt the south, and then it changes every year where the cows are too. So it's kind of fun that's one thing that we have to figure out as well as where these ranchers are putting their cattle for the year. So
Do you ever hunt around? Do you ever hunt in the same area as the cattle, or do you pretty
oh
much once you figure out where the cattle are, you're out of there?
no, it's we hunt with the cattle all the time, and specifically just because we've had so much experience finding birds right where the cows are. It's the I guess it's not where the cows are during the season, it's where they put the cows before the season started,
Okay.
because usually they move their cows as it goes throughout the year. And so if they start on the north part and work more south, you just don't work the north part, because you know there isn't going to be any cover, and you work more towards where the cows are and where the cover is. So
Got it. It's almost like the cows are creating a transition line.
oh, absolutely. No, and it's crazy, and especially it's fun to watch it sometimes too, because they'll run that cow wire, the electric wire down it, and you can see the huge difference between where they just were and where they transitioned them over that electric fence line, because it's like bare compared to, head high grass. So
Interest. That's crazy. I've never seen, I mean, I know when I was out, like I mentioned, I was in California for a little bit, and I did some mountain biking and some hiking around Mount Diablo. And in that area, they have just cattle grazing too, and on public land. And that was a completely new experience for me, because that just doesn't happen in Wisconsin at all. Like,
yeah,
like all the cattle here is on their own farms. I mean, it's all everything's. I mean, it's the farmer's responsibility to keep his cows on his land. I mean, and unlike other parts like Oregon, I know it's the landowner's responsibility to keep cows off their land or cattle off their
yeah,
land. Whereas here, it's our responsibilities to keep them on our land. So I
yeah,
mean, you just don't have that open grazing here that you do in other parts. So I mean, that's so unique and so like it's so completely different to what I have experienced here. Like, and I'm not, it's not bad. It's like just completely different
yeah.
experience.
No, it definitely is, and I think I think a lot of it has to do with as well, because obviously I don't think like the cattle ranchers are just going, hey, we just want to eliminate all the hunting on this piece of property, so we're going to keep our cows on here till there's no grass left. It really comes down to, I think, what most states have conversations with farmers or ranchers. A lot of states, they have programs where the farmers only cut off the top pass, so they leave habitat for those pheasants to repopulate and prosper in and eat and grow the population. Whereas I just don't think that conversation is had here, where they just say, okay, you can graze these parts of the bird refuge, and just make sure you're working down the line, and if it gets mowed all the way down, it's that's just how it is. So
I mean, it's a different way to attack invasive species and different plants and like continuously regrow habitat as well, though. Because I mean, here we'll do controlled burns, like we'll
yeah.
burn prairies. Whereas
Mhm.
by you don't have to do a controlled burn, because you can let the cows go, and you're kind of killing two birds with one stone, because now the ranchers and that they're able to feed their cattle on some public land, and you don't have to do a controlled burn either to get the same results of bringing up natural habitat again.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's great, and I can. That's probably exactly why they do it. The bird refuge doesn't want, you know, they want it to be able to access and for us to hunt it. And so maybe if they didn't even have cattle, maybe we wouldn't even be able to hunt those areas, because they're full of frag. I mean, frag is
Right.
terrible on the bird refuge, and they do a lot of projects, and cows are definitely one of them. They have swamp eaters, they do controlled burns, and heck, if you can feed some cattle while you're controlling some overgrowing conditions and stuff like that, then definitely I don't see why not. I think for me personally, talking about it though is just like, you know, and maybe this is me just going, okay, well, my best spot is now crap this year
Right.
because I've been on it. Maybe that's just me, but I think maybe it's just a conversation, and maybe figuring out that spots that you just don't let cows overgraze on. Obviously, don't take them out of the equation, but maybe leave
Right.
these parts so it's accessible. Have them go eat on the other side of the river where there is a bunch of cover that you can't hunt, versus the spot where you
Sure.
can only hunt. So it's
And
just it's a fun game that you
I'm,
play.
I'm, I'm sure there's some huge conservation plan that is out there that explains some of it, right? And I don't have a clue, because I've been to Utah once, so I have no idea what their conservation plan is out there. But it's completely different for me to like think like I could be going to hunt some pheasant land, and like normally I'll run into be like, oh man, they did a controlled burn here. this is done for the year. Like they
Yeah.
in the middle of summer, they burnt it, be like, oh, I'm not going to any of these fields. But it'd be completely different to roll up and be like, oh man, the cattle's in there this year.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a fun and new experience and something that we deal with. So
That's it's kind it's unique. It's cool in its own way, right? I mean, it's just something. I mean, it makes it more of a challenge for you because you're like, you can't necessarily go back to the same spot year after year, but then you're constantly learning new areas, new habitat, and not only that, it's more experience on how those birds are reacting to changing conditions in their habitat.
yeah, no, I completely agree. And it is fun. It is fun. And honestly, probably the most success me and my wife have ever had are hunting right next to the cattle. I don't know what it is about cows that draw pheasants to them, but I mean, me and my wife had experience this year where we were kind of avoiding the cows a little bit more, and Willow, our Griffon, she 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 wouldn't leave the cows alone, and so we just finally just let her go right in between those cows, and obviously the cows disperse, and next thing we know, she's on a point, and we find two roosters in that spot just because they're in the middle of all the cows. So I think they definitely, because there's always a cattle presence, I feel like the pheasants around here, especially where we go hunt, have been accustomed to cows so much that it's almost like a protection, it seems like. So we always push cows just because
Sure,
there's always a chance you could find something there.
that makes sense. I mean, they might find security in knowing those cows are around. I mean, the cows can see predators coming from way farther away than what they can, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, maybe they find secure. I have no idea. Like that's not anything I ever experienced out here, like I said. But I could see maybe there's some sort of security in that, and that's why the pheasants are drawn to being around the cows.
Yeah, definitely. And it like you said, unique, and it's definitely different and something that you just learn from over time doing it. Like if I was a when I was young, I never thought to go, "Hey, let's go push these cows off this spot because there might be a pheasant there." I'd probably, as a youth hunting, I would just say, "Ah, I really don't want to get trampled by a cow. I think I'm going to stay away from them this time." You know.
That'd be my thoughts. Be like, yeah, can we go hunt these? Yeah, we could hunt that field with the cows, but I don't want to get trampled. I don't want my dog to get injured. Yeah, no, I'm out. But we'll go
Yeah.
somewhere. I already know what I would do. I'd go to the mountain and go hunt chukar and grouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be like, my pheasant spot's burnt out from some cows. Yeah, we're going up in the mountains.
Yeah, we're gonna go do something different because don't want to get beaten up today.
Pretty much, yep. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying I'm not willing to put the work in because climbing the mountain's not easy, right? But
No.
yeah, there's a little less danger there in my mind because but
Yeah.
I've never hunted around cattle before, whereas you have. So it's those different experiences on what you're comfortable doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that I was just totally talking about how taking cows off would make those places so much better too. But even just cows themselves benefit it like we talked about. But even just it's fun to watch the different trails that they make and make it so we can reach other spots as well. So the cows also just benefit us not only because the pheasants seem to be hanging out with them, but they create a path to spots that me and my wife probably wouldn't get to normally because they're so high frag that you just can't walk through it. So it's definitely
Sure.
unique and we definitely cater to it. And I think you do have the option. We live right next to a mountain that, I'm tired of the cows and I'm tired of the crappy conditions today. Let's go run up a mountain real quick.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, the variety makes it fun, right? Because you can
Mm.
change up your day. I mean, if you want to go hunt chukar, or if you want to go hunt the longtails, and I completely understand like growing a passion towards hunting one bird because I could go hunt some Penrose birds around here if I wanted to. I could go chase wild birds because there is little tiny segments of wild birds. I have found them before, but if I'm going to go invest that kind of time, I'm like, I'm going to drive north and chase grouse because that's the bird like I really love to chase. So I completely understand why like your first thought is let's go find these roosters.
Yep. Yep, definitely. And I think for me it stems a lot of from growing up. Like me personally, um, pheasant was my therapy, and it kind of goes into the name of what me and my wife have grown for our YouTube channel and our Instagram pages. Is the name came from feather therapy. It came from me as a teenager going through some stuff, and instead of going and running around doing crazy stuff, I would go walk a field with my dad's dog,
Sure.
and that would be my time that I would sit there and I would think and I'd reminisce on things going on in my life, and it always seemed to benefit me. And so even just the fun factor of going and chasing pheasants and trying to find and working hard and trying to find the big old tails with the most wild rooster you can find, for me personally, and I know my wife feels this way as well, um, is it's a good time to think and kind of get away from real life as well. And so yeah, that's kind of my growing into loving pheasants, and obviously ducks too. But for whatever reason, dogs, long tails, and me seem to go really well together. And now that I'm married and have an amazing wife, she also loves it as well, and it's a passion of hers too. So it's kind of a blessing all the way around.
And I've said this before, but it really plays into exactly what you said. I mean, like I find like when I go deer hunting, it's a time to reflect on myself, and it's like a big like reflection period. And duck hunting for me is a super social thing. I like doing it with friends, joking around, cooking breakfast, drinking coffee. But when it comes to like bird hunting behind a dog, like it's 100% about the moment for me. Like work doesn't matter, home life doesn't matter. I mean, I am 100% focused on the moment we're in, watching the dog in the woods or in the field. I mean, there's just it's different. So I mean, when you say feather therapy, that's your YouTube page. That's what you. I mean, it totally makes sense, and I completely understand like why when you're saying like you duck hunt, but like you find like it just a different level of therapy, like when you're out running them roosters.
It is, and it's almost like a balance for me and my wife, because like even just like going to the gym sometimes just sucks, but we'll go walk 4 or 5 miles chasing pheasants. And so we really believe strongly about being strong mentally, physically, and emotionally and stuff like that. And it's crazy how much hunting and what goes into hunting, especially chasing pheasants, can evolve around all those things. One, if you're not fit, you ain't walking the 5 miles you need to go find a long tail. If you're not mentally prepared, you're going to get frustrated every second you walk because you're not going to find a bird every second. And emotionally, it seems to be a good healer, especially for me personally, and for my wife as well. She feels that way as well. That it you seem to be able to let things go, and you seem to be able to think a lot more clearly when you're walking miles with your dog and maybe your wife or your husband. And so it really is cool how something as simple as hunting or as complicated as hunting, whichever way you look at it, can be something as cool as almost life changing. So
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So we're coming here to the end. I'm going to give the next few minutes to you. Um, Tell everyone about your YouTube channel. Tell everybody about your Instagram. Tell the people what you got going on. How you're putting out some media out there, some really good media, like showing people what you're doing.
yeah, for sure. I appreciate that, Brad. So feather therapy, that's our YouTube channel, and it's feathertherapy.business for Instagram. Someone else had feather therapy straight off, so I had to put a dot business behind it, but we'll take it. It really is just me and my wife, and our two dogs. We have a wire hair and a German short hair, and we just love hunting. We love going out and doing it. It's something that we look forward to every year, and it's something that we specifically plan for throughout our year to make sure that we can go and do it. And so our Instagram and our YouTube is focused around that. Like me and Brad were talking about here a little bit ago, it's me and my wife's therapy, and that's how we came up with the name, because it's something that helps us physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I feel like with a lot of people, it's the same way. So if you want, give us a follow, check us out. We really just post our experiences. It's just something that we're passionate about, and we just want to share our side. So if you're looking for someone else to follow that does the same stuff with you, if you're looking for a good watch every once in a while, we're working on a video right now where we went to a pheasant farm and somehow my phone ended up in the lake, and it's quite funny. So it'll be coming out soon because we're working on it. But it's just fun things like that. We're nothing crazy, but we're just sharing our story and sharing our passion like Brad does. It really is something cool that we enjoy doing. So give us a follow if you'd like. If you don't, that's okay. We'll still keep doing it because it's something we love. But we would love anybody that would love to join and be a part of it. So thank you, Brad.
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been great talking to you. It's always easy talking to another Griff owner, which I thought you were, but I kind of was in the back of my head. But then he confirmed me. I'm like, oh, right then I know this show is going to be great. So it was great having you on. All my listeners, as always, thank you for tuning in. If you guys wouldn't tune in, I would probably still do this, but it wouldn't be nearly as fun nobody listened. So I really do appreciate you. And until next time, keep chasing that experience.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in Northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jig Masters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com